Hello everybody, Michael Spray Jones coming to you with another video. We're going to dispel a really prevalent myth, which is when you have a building from the turn of the century, 1900s forward, 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, that you should not be insulating these buildings, or that you can't go and insulate them from the inside without having some sort of damage done to them, and that some sort of extensive air movement needs to happen for the outside walls in order to keep them from committing suicide. And that's not accurate. It's not an accurate diagnosis of what's going on with these old buildings. So if you have an old building like this and you're looking to upgrade the insulation, well, you're in for a treat today, because my name's Mike. I'm the owner of Spray Jones, and I produce content dealing with spray foam insulation to get you up to speed, educated on modern building envelope, particularly using closed cell spray foam and some open cell. The reason that old buildings have troubles when they are insulated with modern materials is that you are seeing the Achilles heel of what a vapor barrier internally, if you have plastic. This is going to apply to people that have buildings primarily where you're going to need a vapor barrier on the inside, right? So if your code in your county and in your province and in your state is calling for vapor diffusion protection, so a vapor barrier or a vapor diffuser, you're going to want to listen up, because when you put 6 mil polyethylene, and why is it 6 mil? Well, that's to deal with the thickness of air leakage. The vapor barrier system is serving a dual function. It's trying to stop air and it's trying to stop vapor. Vapor can be stopped very easily with a piece of cellophane. That's all it takes to stop vapor, but it will not hold up under load of air pressure. So when the building is pressurized from the interior side to the exterior, the thin plastic would tear if it wasn't of a decent thickness and have adequate capabilities. So that is why 6/1000ths of an inch polyethylene is typically used with vapor barriers, not always exclusively. The next thing is continuity. The polyethylene needs to be continuous. It does no good for you to put up a sheet of poly but then be able to get around it at the edges and at the corners and at the transitions where there's an electrical box or a pipe or something going to the outside. So all of these areas need to be continuous. So that's why they sell these vapor barrier boxes that go around your electrical, or nowadays they're selling these plastic electric boxes that have gaskets and what have you. The idea is that at no point in the gap of the assembly do we have areas where air now cheats and gets out of these smaller peripheral areas. When you go and apply a bat, whether it's mineral fiber or glass fiber, and then you go and put 6 mil polyethylene in one of these old vintage buildings, what you are dealing with is air leakage. You are dealing with air, warm air that carries moisture with it, getting through the cracks and the crevices. And you say, well, I'm going to do a real good job. I'm going to seal it up from the inside. I'm going to spend a week doing it, and me and my brother-in-law are going to do it. Fine. No argument that you two can probably get it fairly well sealed until you go and put the interior finishings up. Paneling, drywall, some type of sheetrock, tongue and groove paneling, pine, cedar. What are you doing for interior finishing? When you do that, you're poking the plastic with holes. And when you have holes that are 1/4 of an inch in diameter, they have the ability to flow 30 liters of water through them during the heating cycle season, whatever your heating cycle is. And this is applying to where you have cold weather outside and you need to be in heating mode internally. So this is going to exclude Texas and Florida and all that sort of stuff, and Arizona and Nevada and what have you. This is going to be applied to Missouri and Kansas and Wyoming and North and South Dakota and Minnesota and Michigan and in Boston and on and on and on. New York for sure. Because if you allow warm air from inside the building to make its way through the wall and then find something cold enough to condense, there's where the problem is. Water is not a problem when it is in suspension. When it comes out of suspension and it condenses and it forms water droplets inside the wall assembly or roof, now you've got a wet wall, wet wood, and you've got building degradation. So when moisture comes out of suspension in the air, that's when you have problems. Why are batted walls in old buildings suicide? Because you cannot keep up with the air leakage. Any interior finishing that you put will poke holes through. Those holes will flow air. Air will flow water. Water will get into whether it is a wood wall or a masonry wall. It doesn't matter. It's going to get into the cracks and crevices. It's going to get into all the little fissures and all the little peripheral areas where air flows to the outside, and then it's going to condense. So you are correct in thinking this building has gone for 75 years so far with poor insulation inside. Why did it survive with poor insulation? Because it didn't have plastic film on the interior side that when the moisture formed, and it did form, it formed without the plastic there, it was allowed to wick to the interior side or to the outside. So the air leakage was high, extremely high, a sieve, really, just a gigantic sieve, but that sieve allowed it to dry back out. So the thinking of, well, we need to then provide air flow between the insulation and the exterior is not properly placed. Why not eliminate the problem in the first place? And that is, you have got to get away from batting it and putting up polyethylene sheet on the inside. That is a recipe for suicide. It is going to cause the building to die. A fairly quick death. The colder it stays, the more you heat it, the higher your humidity level interior-wise. Like at 34% relative humidity, it takes 17 degrees Celsius of variance between substrate temperature and air temperature to form condensation. So raise the humidity level to 40 or 45% and it takes even less variance. So if you are in a very windy climate of Wyoming or Montana or even Kansas, Missouri, even parts of Michigan and New York, you get a damp, wet day in New York State and it's cold outside, you're going to very easily have drip, drip, drip inside the walls. So what's to be done about it? We changed to closed cell polyurethane foam. This product does not let air go through it. It does not let water go through it. It expands 25 times the liquid mass to what's put on. So it's going to seal itself into all the little cracks and crevices that we spray it into. The only way to mess that up is to forget about something, to not put the foam where it needs to go. So put the foam where it needs to go. Put it into the stud cavities. Get it to adhere onto the masonry wall or the boards that are there. It'll crawl into all the cracks and crevices and seal them off to the outside. But more importantly, what's going on is when we build up 2 or even 3 inches of closed cell foam on the inside, we do not have a condensing point within the wall assembly. So we do not have a point where hot and cold meet and form water droplets inside the foam insulation. So the wood is not going to get wet, not the studs and not the exteriors. So when you seal off the air and you stop warm air from meeting something cold enough to condense, you don't have a condensing point, you don't have a hollow space in order to condense into and hold the water, you eliminate the moisture problems. You eliminate the potential for quick and effective suicide of the building through the envelope. Does this make sense? This makes sense. This is not super duper science. This is just getting out of myth, getting out of fear, getting out of suspicion and superstition, and getting into just scientific fact. Control the air, control the condensing point, put an insulation into the wall that's adhered to it, not laying it up against it, put an insulation that fills all the cracks and crevices and displaces area for the moisture to be, and then use a product that does not allow air and water to go through it. And guess what? You've eliminated the problem. The only way to have a problem now is to skip a spot and miss a spot. And it doesn't take very much on these buildings. 2 inches of closed cell foam will, in nearly every spot that I can think of in North America, Canada and the US, 2 inches of closed cell foam will eliminate the problems from happening. Period. Now, do I advocate for open cell foam? Yeah, you can. you can, but it's all going to be dependent again on vapor barriers. It's going to be dependent on whether or not your state and your county requires vapor diffusion protection. If it doesn't, fine. Open cell is a whole lot better than going with bats. But if you're going to get into cold weather climate, if you're in Minnesota, if you're in Montana, I'd say closed cell is the product for you. Because then you're not having to deal with putting up some type of vapor barrier to control the diffusion. You've controlled the air leakage, but you need to control the diffusion going through the wall assembly, especially on a 2x4, 2x6 where you're shaving the foam, the open cell foam, and leaving it flush, or flush with the studs. So there you have it, folks. It's a real simple fix. We've been doing this for 19 years, and we're not the originators of this. We're just the people that are a little more outspoken than most. You put this in the walls, it's going to work. We've been doing it for a long period of time. So lay out your comments, lay out your questions. But I think you know the truth when you hear it, right? It's a pretty simple, easy solution. So click like and subscribe. Catch you on another video soon. Bye.